Let's take a look. 2022 edge rusher rankings. This is from Pro Football Focus. Tier 1, Defensive Player of the Year candidates. Number 1, TJ Watt. You got Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack, Micah Parsons. Tier 6, need to live up to expectations and potential. In the middle of that is Jadeveon Clowney, and the thought is that he will be back with the Browns. Let's welcome in Sam Monson from Pro Football Focus, who did those. And Sam, appreciate the time. Thanks very much. So take us through, Myles Garrett. Let's start there. Legitimate Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He's been close and then has kind of faltered last couple of years.
Yeah, I think he's absolutely a legit candidate for that. I don't think you can split really Myles Garrett and TJ Watt in terms of how good those two guys are at the edge rusher position. They're both amazing. They're both phenomenal pass rushers. I think TJ Watt maybe has done it a little bit more consistently for a little bit longer. Myles Garrett, it feels like we've been waiting for this 1 year where Garrett puts it all together and gives you 16, 17 games now of just this elite, unstoppable play. But between, the suspension for the Mason Rudolph thing, between catching COVID, it just seems that we never quite get that whole season where he's just dominant from start to finish. But those two guys should be right up there in any Defensive Player of the Year conversation. I would imagine, once again, they're going to be getting a ton of sacks, a ton of pressures, and be amongst, two of the top 3, 4, 5 best graded players at PFF.
And then let's talk a little bit about Jadeveon Clowney. That's kind of the tier 6, need to live up to potential. You had it. That's a guy that, he's such a freak of nature athletically and had such big hopes. In watching him regularly last year, he's really good against the edge and doing some of the things that don't necessarily show up statistically all the time.
Yeah, he's a really powerful, dominant athlete at times. The problem with Jadeveon Clowney is always been inconsistency. And, maybe he doesn't have the great bend and dip and burst around the edge that some other edge rushers have, but he's got more than enough physical tools to be a really dominant playmaker. And the fact that he hasn't had this big money contract that he's been looking for, really shows that inconsistency. His grades have been heading in the wrong direction since he left Houston, and keeps betting on himself in these sort of 1-year contracts, trying to have that big year that'll get him the giant deal, and it just doesn't come. And really, there's no reason that it shouldn't. We saw for a stretch last year that he was this fantastic complement to Myles Garrett, and a guy that really made that Cleveland defensive line formidable when you suddenly had to worry about Jadeveon Clowney on the other side. And if you didn't, that's when he was going to go off. And then Clowney just kind of faded and wasn't able to sustain that play the way Garrett is. And that really has been the story of his career, that we know he's capable of more than we're seeing. We just don't get it all the time. And that's really been the tale of why he hasn't had that giant extension.